Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to read the first part of the second chapter in the novel Follet. So if you're sitting comfortably and ready to begin, we can start. Follet woke up and looked out the window. The sun was so bright that it lit up the curtain like it was a neon sign. He had done good work last night. He rolled out of bed and went to the tiny bathroom to shower, shave, and brush his teeth. When he came out of the bathroom, he grabbed his clothes from the floor and walked over to his suitcase, which still lay tossed into the closet, opened it, and chose a fresh pair of jeans, a black Triumph t-shirt, and a pair of white socks. He pulled the leather belt with the new silver rodeo buckle from yesterday's washed-out khakis, folded them, and the green polo shirt, and tossed them into the laundry sack that he kept in the suitcase. The suitcase was an affectation for the benefit of the people Follett came in contact with. An incubus created the clothes he wore, so a suitcase was unnecessary, but a man checking into a motel with no luggage drew unneeded attention. Follett slipped on his new clothes and sat down on the bed to pull on his boots. He snatched the black Chuck Taylors from the floor and tossed them into his bag along with his shaving kit. Then the incubus laced up his black Doc Marten 1460s and he was ready to go. Follett was hungry. He grabbed his suitcase, looked around the room to make sure he hadn't forgotten anything, and walked out the door, tossing the bag into the back seat of the big Argyle blue Biarritz. He locked the car and strolled down to the diner. When he walked into the chrome and vinyl restaurant, he smelled fresh coffee and all the wonderful smells of almost home cooking. The little radio sat on the shelf behind the cash register, happily spewing out a soft infusion of rockabilly. Follett smiled and headed for his booth from the night before. Almost as soon as he sat down, a waitress appeared, a tall dishwater blonde with embroidery on her sleeve that told Follett that she was Dorothy P. She said, "You're kind of cute. Do you want to take anything with you?" Follett laughed and said, "No thanks, Dorothy. I'll eat it here." "What's the P for?" Dorothy smiled and said, "Parker. Coffee?" "Absolutely. I'll be right back," she said, and headed back into the counter, stopping after a step to turn and smile his way. Follett grabbed the menu and looked over the breakfast and lunch offerings. Under the omelets he found something called Cowboy quiche, and Dorothy returned with his coffee. "What's a Cowboy quiche, and why is it listed under omelets?" Follett asked her. Dorothy laughed. "J.W. is a big James Bond fan, and James Bond made a quiche for one of his girls and told her that it was an omelet. It's a Cowboy quiche because it's bacon, onions, and cheddar cheese quiche." "J.W.?" Follett asked. "Our cook, J.W. Harden." "Well, that sounds just about perfect," Follett told her. "Cream for your coffee?" "No, thanks. I drink mine black." She walked back to place his order, and Follett looked out the window. Blue sky, big puffy clouds far off to the west, and a brilliantly bright sun. A great day to travel. The door to the diner opened, and Annie walked in. She was wearing brown deerskin lace-up paddock boots, worn soft, washed-out blue jeans, a brown ostrich belt with a Heston NFR barrel racing buckle, a soft, often-washed cambric shirt, and a beautiful smile. She stopped by the register, listening to the radio. With a sparkle in her eyes, she sang the lyrics to Eddie Cochran's sweet instrumental version of "I'll See You in My Dreams." "I'll see you in my dreams, hold you in my dreams," and took a seat at the counter. Smiled to himself. The quiche arrived, and Follett wolfed it down like a starving man. He drained his coffee, got up, and walked to the register. Annie turned to look at him and smiled, and then turned back to her breakfast. Follett explained to Dorothy that he wanted to pay his tab for room 10, his gas, and his meals. She looked at the accounts book next to the register and told him, "Don't worry, Alice took care of it for you." "You made quite an impression on her, mister. Have a great day." Follett nodded. He turned back to the booth and pulled out a 20 from his wallet, sliding it under the plate, and then walked out into the sunshine. Follett was in no hurry. The calls came in their own time, and the dreams belonged to the dreamers. Today he enjoyed the drive, the big old boat locked in at 60 miles an hour, windows down, radio blasting out the Hot Club of France with Django Reinhardt's clean, fast, hot jazz picking, every note a unique individual. "I'll see you in my dreams." Follett drove the two-lane blacktop until mid-afternoon. He needed gas and to stretch his legs. He found himself rolling through a little town with big elm trees towering over the street as it meandered past little clapboard houses, a brick church or two, bigger Victorian homes, and finally into a business district of two-story brick buildings that only took up a couple of blocks. On a corner he saw a gas station that must have been there since the 1920s. New pumps, but not much else had changed. He pulled in, and a grandfatherly-looking man walked out of the office. "Beautiful old caddy, mister. Fill her up and check the oil?" "Thanks. I never expected to have service like that," Follett exclaimed. The old man chuckled. "Well, we antiques deserve extra care." Follett smiled. "Amen to that. When you're through, would you like to take her around the block?" The man paused and looked Follett in the eye. "You trust me with her?" Follett grinned. "As long as you treat her respectfully and get her home on time, I won't have to go after you with my shotgun." The old man laughed and stuck out his hand. "Bud Sweatman. Pleased to meet you. I'm Follett." "The pleasure's mine. We Sweatmans have been living in this town for generations. The only one who ever left was my brother Harold, who moved to South Carolina back in the 50s. But I'd like to stretch my legs and get a cold drink. I'll stop back later to settle up." "That would be fine, Mr. Follett. Hey, if you're thirsty, my granddaughter Margie has a lemonade stand in front of her house over on Utah Road. A block that away and a block over. She sure could use the business." "Sounds perfect, Bud. See you in a while. Thanks." "Thank you, Mr. Follett. I'll take good care of your baby." "I know you will," Follett told him and walked off down the street. As he strolled past the well-kept homes and flower-filled yards, Follett let his mind wander. He thought back to his work. He was 20 before he had first felt the calling. He had gone off to college and had fallen in love, his first real girlfriend. They had made love, and he was spellbound by the girl and the joy he felt even when he just thought about her. But their love was not to last. They parted for summer vacation, and when they met again in school in the fall, she had fallen head over heels for another man. He was devastated. He discovered tequila and forgot about his classes. He spent most days drinking and wandering. One morning, on his way to the liquor store, he heard someone calling to him. He turned his head to see who it was, but no one was there. He walked back the way he had come, and the calling became clearer and more insistent. He turned left, back toward the school, and the calling intensified. On the block before he reached the dorms, he turned left, and a couple of blocks later stood outside a single-story red brick house. He looked both ways, and seeing no one, walked up to the house. The calling was so intense it was difficult for him to think. He walked into the open garage, up the 3 little stairs, and into the kitchen. There was a light on the table in the living room that let him see the hallway. He walked down and opened the last door. She was lying on the bed, asleep, a well-thumbed romance novel, The Ripped Bodice, on the table next to her. And then the room changed.